Welcome to biology. In this video, we are going to introduce our new unit that talks all about cells. Now, I want you to take a moment and think, why do all four of these different images on this intro screen have different structures? So we have a nerve cell that has a whole bunch of spindles coming out in any direction. We have a paramecium that looks like a little blob, a single-celled organism. We have bacterial cells, some of which have these long whip-like flagella tails. And we also have these skeletal muscles, which are really long and striated. All four of these are in pictures of individual cells. However, each of them has a totally different appearance. And that's because this structure of what the cell looks like really determines the function or what that cell is able to do. So I want us to briefly review. There are 8 characteristics that are required in order for an organism to be considered alive. The first one is reproduction, so being able to have offspring, and reproduction can take a couple different forms. The second piece is having the universal genetic code, or the DNA. In our last unit, we talked about nucleic acids, which are the foundation for DNA. Living things also have the ability to grow and develop, so they either get bigger or they change throughout their life cycle. Living things also are able to obtain and use materials and energy, so either they're able to obtain sunlight and convert that into its own food and energy, or they consume other things in order to obtain their energy. Living things also respond to the environment. So if you think about a plant, tends to grow towards the sunlight and tries to access more of that light. Living things are also able to maintain what's called homeostasis, or keeping their internal conditions pretty constant throughout their life. They also evolve as a population. So over time, the population might start to shift to look more like some type of beneficial trait based off of whatever pressure is happening in the environment. And finally, all living things are made of one or more cells. And that's why we're focused on that in this unit. So the cell is the basic unit of life. So all living things are made of one or more cells, and they're really these building blocks for making living organisms. So why do we need to really study cells? Well, within our human life and within all living things, there are these certain levels of organization, and each level really builds upon the previous one. So our smallest level would be atoms and chemicals, which we talked all about in the first unit. Then we have cells. So when you have a bunch of atoms joined together into these chemical compounds, and they're all building these fabulous macromolecule structures, eventually when they're all assembled together, we get a cell. Now when you have a bunch of cells joined together and working together, that makes a tissue. When you have several tissues working together, that makes an organ. And when you have several organs working together, that makes an organ system. Now if you think about humans, we have multiple organ systems within our body. So when you have several organ systems working together, you get an organism. That's where that name comes from. So I like this image here because it really breaks down the individual levels, starting from the smallest all the way up to a full organism. And that example on here is looking at humans. So let's talk about humans for an example here. So to really understand how the human body works, we need to understand how the body functions at each of these levels. And to understand the level, particularly the cell level, we need to understand the structure to understand the function. So this is going to become a theme throughout the unit. The form or the structure or what does that particular cell look like really determines the function or how that cell works. And we are going to dive pretty deep into that throughout this unit.